Chapter 11. The Pygmalion Effect. Dante and Julian Williams search what remains of Axiom-A. There are no survivors and very little bodies, which leads both of them to believe that most made it out. Dante is thankful not to have found Violet here. She managed to make it out, and he knows she's a fighter, so she will be fine. An emergency alert plays across all radio channels, telling people to seek shelter and not to engage the UB threat. It repeats after a shrill tone. Williams proved himself to be useful, even if he has been strangled by madness. He led Dante to a vehicle that by some miracle wasn't damaged to the point of uselessness, and they used that as a means of leaving the ruined site. The road leading to Kanto is broken in spots, but it's still safe to traverse. Death litters the side of the mountain road to the point it desensitizes any onlookers. It isn't only human, but Pokemon, and even plant life. The world is turning into a barren and blood-filled waste. Dante and Williams enter Kanto via Cerulean, and the worst is only yet to be seen. Two Gatekeeper Ultra Beasts hover over the city, creating more wormholes that unleash swarms of the same creatures that tore apart the Vanguard team. These spider-like Ultra Beasts tear through everything in sight. They demolish buildings in those ruins, and in those ruins some plant themselves into the ground. This action confuses Dante, but when he sees ones that must have been done this earlier, it makes sense. Glowing purple veins flow through the ground, tainting the land. Wherever the purple taint touches, the same crystals Dante saw in the UB world grow like weeds. As the crystals grow and pulse, all life around them drains from the ground. Dante understands it all now. What the energy that flows through the realm of Ultra Space really is. It is the life force of every world these Ultra Beasts have destroyed. Getting to Saffron from Cerulean is a short drive, but the closer they get to the city, the more resistance is being put up. A radio broadcast cuts into the emergency alert, and a familiar voice delivers a message of hope. "People of Kanto," Violet's voice says over the radio, "make your way to Saffron City. A resistance has been set up at Chimera Tower. We will protect you all during our darkest hour. Every able-bodied trainer, fight these invaders back. We are the world's only hope now." The message repeats. By the carnage and destruction leading into the city, Dante wonders if any fighters remain. Dante's own question is answered when they near the tower. A makeshift barricade of overturned cars protect the trainers and their Pokemon as they hold off the horde of Pyramid Ultra Beasts. All form of Pokemon fight back these beasts, and at the center are Violet's Palkia and Deep Sea Gyarados. This amassed force holds the line best they can, but the swarm is unending, with the massive gatekeepers floating above the city. "Plow through those little bastards!" Dante orders, pointing at the swarm. Without hesitation, William floors it and their vehicle reaches its top speed and plows through the pyramid-shaped insects. They get halfway through the barricade before the sheer number stops them in their tracks. Someone in the barricade calls out for the Pokemon to give Dante and Williams an opening. Palkia flies down and lands with a powerful force that shakes the ground. The powerful dragon cleaves a path of destruction, creating an opening for the barricade. Dante and Williams take one chance they have and rush to the overturned vehicles. Multiple hyper beams blast from a handful of Pokemon up into the sky at the gatekeepers. Their attacks seem to do nothing to the giant-eyed covered Ultra Beast. Dante climbs the barricade and turns to pull William up with him. Once they are over, they are rushed by the survivors. "It's Dante Lark!" someone says with rage. "He caused all this! He opened the hole into Ultra Space! Get him and hold him down! Enough!" Violet yells from behind the crowd. The group of amassed people split as she and her Garchomp walk up to him. She goes into his arms and holds him. "I thought you were dead. It's been so long I gave up hope," she says, almost on the brink of tears. "What do you mean, been so long? We weren't even on the other side for an hour." Violet pulls away and looks up at him. "Dante, it's been 3 weeks since you entered the wormhole, but it doesn't matter. I need to get to the top of the tower," he says in a frantic whisper. "I can end all of this." Almost drawn forward by a string being pulled, Dante walks right past Violet and continues to repeat that he can end all this. Violet turns to the survivors. "This could be our last stand today. Do not let these bastards overtake the tower. We will fight them back all the way to where they came from if we have to. Kill every last one of them," she says with a violent bloodlust that sets the survivors into a frenzy. She turns to Garchomp and places a hand on her head. "I need you to stay here. Fight them off if they start climbing the cars." After all minds are set on defending the tower, Violet catches up to Dante. "What happened, Vi? What went wrong?" he asks as they enter the lobby. "I was going to ask you the same thing. It was about 3 days after you and your team went into the wormhole. A larger one ripped open above Axiom-A, and the gatekeeper came back. It destroyed the facility and started opening more portals. More gatekeepers came through, and it was clear that this was an invasion. We all thought you were killed, Dante. He remains silent for a second as he calls the elevator. Nearly, but we were only in ultraspace for 30 minutes at most. Everyone except me and the kid were torn apart by those damn pyramid bug ultra beasts. It was a bloodbath, Dante says with a 1,000-yard stare on his face. Violet takes Dante's hands in hers and squeezes it reassuringly. How can you end all this, Dante? There is something in my office. I have to get to it. The elevator's ding and opens. They enter in silence and begin to ascend the tower. Near the 30th floor, Violet asks Dante again how he can end all of this. She presses and it is almost demanding an answer. Do you really want to know, Vi? He says with a hostility in his voice. He turns to her, wearing a look of madness across his face. She nods and Dante continues. Back at Craft Island, the book, the Damni Imperatum. The wish-granting book? Violet realizes before he can finish. Oh, Dante, no, don't say it. Oh, yes, Violet, I kept the book. Why would I destroy something so powerful? I not only kept it, but I used it to give me all the knowledge I needed to make this company. He looks away from Violet and at the numbers of the digital elevator panel. Now, I will end this before it's too late. The book caused all this, Dante. Why do you think you can use it to fix it? He doesn't answer. No one can understand the power of the book but him. He has used it. He knows the power it holds. Just 6 floors shy of Dante's office, something causes the tower to shake and rumble. The elevator screeches to a halt as the power cuts off and the emergency power kicks in. Dante acts fast and pries the door open so he and Violet can continue the rest of the way on foot. He helps her up to the next floor and she helps pull him up. There is another violent crash and the tower shakes. They're trying to stop me, he says with a paranoid tone. Without waiting for Violet, he takes off running through the office, making a beeline for the stairwell. Violet does her best to keep up with him, but he is running in such a way that one would run for their lives. Another crash that shakes the tower and glass shatters. Massive tentacles force their way into the tower. The gatekeepers latch onto the tower and demolish what they can, as if they're trying to topple the whole building. Dante, wait for me! Violet cries out as she enters the stairs. Finally coming to some form of sense, he stops and waits for his wife. She reaches him and the stairs, but stops for a moment. She places a hand on her stomach. It's hard, Dante, she says, referring to the pregnancy. If you can fix this apocalypse with that damned book, I will forgive you for keeping it, but it has to be destroyed. Dante refuses to answer and only begins to climb up the stairs. She follows close behind him. The tower shakes and rumbles as more of it's torn away. The deep moans of the gatekeeper rip through the air as they destroy the tower. It shakes and sways as it almost feels like it's about to give. They burst into the top floor where Dante's office is. Neither he nor Violet are able to stand when the tower shifts and rises into the air. The tentacles continue their assault as the terrible ultra beasts lift the top of the tower into the sky. Just as they reach the office, the floor beneath them gives and falls out. Dante clings to the doorway with Violet barely holding on to the crumbling floor. He hoists his body up and turns to reach for his wife. Come on, I got you, Vi, Dante says with an outstretched arm. I have to jump, she warns as she readies her body. Violet grips the rubble with all her might. Dante is not too far, but it's still further than she has ever had to leap. It is now or never. With all her strength, she swings to jump, and the rubble she holds onto crumbles away. Dante reaches for her, nearly throwing himself from the ruin, but it is futile. Dante watches as Violet falls to what remains of the tower below, her body landing in a mess of rebar. Dante's world spins as he flashes back to the dream all those years ago. Violet impaled among the world filled with fire. Everything is coming true. I can fix this, he says, staring down at the shrinking land beneath him. I can bring her back. I can stop this invasion. His words, like his mind, have shattered now, and he pulls himself back up into his office. Dante carefully navigates the crumbling room over to the painting. He swings it open and unlocks the safe. He wastes no time getting the book and opening to the blank page. He grabs a shard of broken glass and cuts his hand open. As he is writing the wish in blood to return everything back to normal, a monstrous roar rips through the air. Everything becomes light as Dante and the book begin to float helplessly. The rest of the tower crumbles and the single massive eye of the lead gatekeeper looks down at Dante. Above the beast is an enormous wormhole that is pulling in everything around it. Parts of the ruined tower vanish as they enter ultraspace. The Damni Imperatum, being lighter than most, flies up and into the open portal. No! Dante screams as he propels himself upward. He passes by the lead gatekeeper, the same beast that emerged from Craft Island's destruction. It reaches for Dante, but the gargantuan Ultra Beast is too slow and Dante enters the wormhole. Dante's world spins as blackness fades to a hellish red. At first he thought it was all some nightmare and he was about to call Violet's name, but reality sets in when he sees his surroundings. The book. I need to find the book, he says with a weak voice. He stands to his feet and begins searching the rubble from the tower. He came through only a moment before the book, so it must be close. You won't find it here, Dante, my boy, a dark and yet familiar voice says from off to the side of him. It is a voice Dante knows all too well, a voice he hasn't heard in nearly 10 years, a voice that has haunted him. He turns with disbelief and looks at a cloaked figure. Lucius.